and welcome to 3Q, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. I'm your host, Rachel Vogel, and joining me for this episode is Michael Kauffman, the Executive Director of the Clio Music Program at the Clio Awards. The Clio Awards is the premier awards competition for the creative business. Clio Music honors creativity in advertising and marketing for artist promotion and brand collaborations, as well as the use of music in ads, trailers, and film and video. Prior to his current role, Michael held senior marketing and corporate communication roles at YouTube, Google, and RightsFlow, a licensing and rights management startup acquired by Google. He also held executive roles with Universal Music Group's Verve and BMG's Wyndham Hill. So without further ado, Michael, thanks so much for being here. Are you ready to get started?
I am. Good morning. Thank you for that overview of my LinkedIn profile. I feel like I now I'm like remembering everything I've done and all the chapters of my career so far. So thank you.
You're pretty impressive.
Oh,
All
thanks.
right. Question one. Imagine for a second you're sitting down with your 25-year-old self. What's one piece of advice you would give him on a personal note, and one piece of advice you would give him from a business perspective?
Well, great question. It's hard to answer that with like one thing. So I like the fact that you broke it between personal and professional. And I think I mean, there's so many things that come to mind on a personal level. Traveling more. When I got into the music business, I was able to start going places for conferences and that sort of thing. I wish I would have married my wife sooner. I mean, but I think the one thing, the funny thing, if I have to give one thing, is floss. You take care of your teeth because as you get older and you go through all the crazy things that happen with your body, and like teeth are one thing that it's weird. Like insurance does not necessarily cover things if you have to have certain dental work done. So I wish I would say, hey, just make sure you're paying a little more attention to your teeth. All right. So that's my personal one, kind of randomly. I think the professional one and personal and professional are so sort of tied together, but for me, I would advise myself to create more, to just investigate ways to be creative and do things. You get kind of consumed with your career and your job, and certainly we've had roles, and I know you have a role too where you get to be creative in your job, but I think there's so many areas of your life that creativity is just so important and critical. And I think it's something that's in our DNA. And I'm reading and listening to the new Rick Rubin book, where it's all about being creative. And he makes some great points, but I think you may not think of yourself as a creative person, but everybody is. Everybody is wired to do that, and it could be the way you arrange your refrigerator magnets. It could be you don't have to be a novelist or a painter. But I wish I would have created more and thought about different ways to create more over the years. And I would really counsel myself when I was younger to do that. I mean, I recently did a painting for literally the first time in decades, where I went and bought paints and a canvas and painted a picture of our beautiful dog Frankie. And I just think, oh man, I wish I would have started like painting or writing poems or whatever it is, because I think creativity certainly is the factor that can change the world, that can change minds, that can impact people. And I've seen that, of course, in my current job at the Clio Awards, where just some of the brilliant things that resonate are shifting. The sands are changing minds, and I love that. Last year at the Clios, we have the Clio Awards coming up actually next week when we're recording this. And there was a piece, an organization called Change the Ref that is focused on dealing with gun control, and two parents who unfortunately lost a son in one of the tragedies, but they created an amazing campaign. Probably a lot of people saw it. It's where they basically set something up where an executive from the NRA came to speak, and it was to what was a graduating class, but they ended up having all the seats empty, representing all the kids that have been killed in just the horrific gun control violence that we've seen. And they got on stage. They won a bunch of Clios, and they got on stage. And first off, they wore a mask as their son, which is insane, and really powerful and emotional. And like everybody was choked up and crying. But I still remember so vividly. He got up there and he said, "Everybody in this room is creative. Everybody in this room has the power to change things, to change minds, and it really comes down to creativity. So keep being creative, keep thinking of ways that creativity can move things forward and make the world a better place. And I would certainly like drill down on that with my 25-year-old self. Just keep creating. That's my personal professional floss and be more creative.
Well said on both ends. Moving along, question two. Every industry has its dirty little secrets, and we all know that it's no different in the music industry. Sometimes people think that's a bad thing, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it can be quite good. What's one secret you would like to share with our listeners about the industry?
The secret to me, and this certainly has been a secret to me for a long time, and I know I've said this to many people, but that is make something happen where you're at. Back when I was at labels, I would constantly get people sending me a demo tape, and I didn't even do A&R. I was a sales guy, and people would send me demo tapes, and they always would reach out for advice, and my advice was always, well, you just focus on honing your craft, working on your craft with a songwriter or musician, obviously in this case, and then get 5 people to love what you're doing. If you love what you're doing, there's probably other people that will love what you're doing too. And as you refine your craft, you take those 5 people, make them 50, make them 100. Record labels will come to you. If you make something happen where you're at, you don't have to be pitching yourself. People will come to you. And I think that's truer today than ever. I mean, obviously now where music is, YouTube and TikTok, or where A&R folks are scouring to see, artists connecting with fans. Like, make something happen where you're at in that channel, even if it's virtual or digital. There's certainly some really great theories over the years. A guy named Kevin Kelly wrote a book, I believe it was, about 1,000 true fans, where you connect with 1,000 fans that love what you do, and create things that they'll pay you $100 a year. That's $100,000 a year. It's a great base of being an artist. Like, really build from 1 fan to 5 to 10 to obviously 1,000 and more. You don't need millions. That's, I think, the thing that sometimes artists, they just want to have a big record deal and have millions of fans. You could really have a great career, a great creative career by focusing on making something happen where you're at.
Absolutely. I also think that kind of like can relate to even executives and even outside of the music industry. You can move into many heights just
Yeah, well,
by going outside the box.
it's personal and professional. It's being in your neighborhood, being engaged, volunteering, things that are important to serving other people, and it's just making something happen where you're at. I mean, I guess that's the way I describe it best. So.
Here we are. Final question. Throughout your career, I can only imagine you've been asked plenty of questions, whether for industry conferences, the media, or even a promotion. But throughout all of those interviews and all of those questions, there has to be one that you've never been asked but would have liked to. So, what is that question and what would be your answer?
Well, I think the question that I would like to be asked and answer is, what's a secret of success? I think people will ask you about your career or a specific job or a project that you've done or that you're working on. But I think asking people, what's a secret of success? Not the secret, a secret, because I think everybody's got different paths. There's many different aspects of all those paths. But for me, that is a little bit every day. And that's kind of how I boil it down. It's like doing something a little bit every day is a secret to building success in whatever you do. If you're trying to develop an audience on social media, it's like doing a post, a week, over the course of a year, that's 52. It's like, I remember when I worked at YouTube, at one point, and it was really the consistency was one of the best practices, where we'd see creators that were successful consistently posting on the platform, often at a particular time or day, every week. And I think that's how you build a story. You do a little bit every day, and one thing can build upon it, the previous thing. And in a business sense, like, when I was at the startup Rights Flow, we were trying to just get people to pay attention. And I remember, I was brought in to do PR. I had never really done PR. I was sales marketing, but I'm like, I can figure this out. And it was like, okay, let's do a little bit every day. And I really started to put together the target of people that wrote about our space. We were in music licensing, and I remember Ben Cesario, amazing writer at the New York Times. Consistently was writing great things about the industry, and I'm like, man, I mean, I love what he does. And for me, it's like my little thing every day was I sent him a note. It's just like, hey, I love this piece that you wrote, and wasn't to sell anything. It wasn't like, hey, I work for Rightsville. It's just like I really appreciated this one piece you wrote about the industry, and that little thing led to a back and forth for a little while, and ultimately he was like, what exactly does the company do? I said, we're in music licensing, and ultimately there was something that he worked on that he was writing about music licensing, and he reached back out. And I think doing those things a little bit every day, I mean, there's a corollary of like being grateful, showing gratitude to people, being thankful. I mean, I think that's so important as well. And probably the other secret, a secret of success, I think gratitude. I often tell people we have amazing work that gets honored in all the Clio programs. I oversee two, Clio Music and Clio Cannabis. We have Clio Entertainment, Clio Sports, Clio Health. Go and look at the winners. See what wins. I mean, you're going to be inspired, but also look in the credits, see who did the work, because it might be a step where you can reach out and say, hey, I love that thing you did. I love that spot, that trailer. I love that marketing campaign. And it just is a way to continue to build connection, and doing a little bit every day, I think ultimately puts you in a place to be successful. So that would be my question and my answer.
I love it 100%. I think that's so important, especially for young professionals coming into this business. Like, never be afraid to reach out to anyone. And even if they don't answer you right away, just follow up every once in a while. It might be a no now, could be a yes in a couple of months.
Well, and you think about, most of us never get complimented, or very infrequently. So even reaching out with some gratitude for some work somebody did is, even if, like you said, they don't answer right away, that is going to resonate. They're going to appreciate that. Don't sell yourself. It's kind of the whole thing we were talking about, bands sending demo tapes. Like, just be the best you can be grateful, and that's going to plant seeds that are going to bring you success in the days, weeks, and years ahead. So
Well, Michael, it has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time.
thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
And to everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Stay tuned for next week of 3Q, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. See you next time.